Welcome to the Florida Real Estate and Entrepreneur Podcast, where we interview the best and the brightest business and real estate leaders. Our mission is to inspire and help 1,000 entrepreneurs to start and succeed in real estate and entrepreneurship. We will give you the exact playbook to succeed in your business through the experience of those who blaze the path. We're bringing the what's working today directly to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Florida Real Estate and Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Whitney, and my guest today is Bennett Andrews, which is interesting because I know a guy named Andrew Bennett.
Do you?
I literally see him in my Facebook feed, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not Bennett, that's Andrew Bennett.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's messing me up. But I know a guy named Andrew Bennett. You're Bennett Andrews. So I was sure not to mess that up. Dude, I'm excited about talking to you today. Bennett has a insane amount of really cool real estate experience. He's done everything from flipping and wholesaling and disposition and working with hedge funds and lending money. And he's looking to grow his business into development. And I'm watching him do it from the sidelines, and it's super cool. He's got a great company. They do, and a brokerage too. And these guys they're quality operators. And I'll tell a little story about my first intro to you, if that's okay, if I share that.
Yeah, I think I know what's coming, which is great.
Okay, cool. So we are in the same market, like maybe a little slight offset, but we occasionally get deals in areas you get deals. And we had negotiated a deal with a seller that we were like, oh, this is a great deal. It was such a good deal that Lindsay drove through the hurricane. Lindsay works on my blackjack team. She drove through the hurricane, gave this guy like $1,000 cash and signed a contract. We're like, oh, this is so awesome. We're helping this guy. And by the way, this house was like, he didn't have electricity on.
I don't think no utilities, right?
No utilities. We're like, gosh, we got to help this guy out.
Yeah.
And Lindsay calls me. She's excited. She's like, oh, I got to get a truck. I'm going to drive over there. I don't care about the hurricane. So she drives over there. She's ready to help this guy out, hands him $1,000 cash and signs the contract. So we're going to do a cash deal on this house, either buy it or wholesale. It didn't really matter for him. And we send it to title. Title comes back and goes, hey, somebody else has already claimed this and has a contract on it. I was like, okay, call him. Let's see what do we got to do to make a deal and how are we going to do it. And Lindsay's a savage. So she's like, I'll call him, And I think she came back. She goes, this guy doesn't want to do a deal. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't want to do a deal? Doesn't want to make money? And it turned out this was like the first time I'm like, who owns that company? I look you up. It's like Bennett Andrews. Who are these guys? And it turned out 4 investors had a contract on that house. I think at some point we all got together and said, let's try to see if we can get the deal done.
Yeah.
The title ended up being too complicated, but I'm pretty sure that seller swindled all of us for some cash.
Well, that's the funny part, because how often do you actually deliver cash to anyone?
Not a lot.
Right. Like next to never, right?
Yeah. A couple times a year, maybe if it's necessary.
Yeah. And that was the same situation for us with it, where just like you mentioned, this guy, I think there was a story that he used. I think that's why I remember the utilities being off, because he's like, hey, man, would you be willing to give me some money so I can get utilities on? And Codes was on his ass about it because, once you have your water shut off, it's a code violation because it's deemed uninhabitable. And so John, actually, my business partner, was the one who was facilitating that deal. And he called me and he was like, yo, dude, we got to actually bring some cash to this. Like, are you cool with that? I'm like, yeah, sounds like a great deal. Let's just do it and get it paid. And lo and behold, it seems like this guy knew what he was doing from the jump.
He totally worked all of us. So the only one who won on that deal was him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But
the cool part was, I kind of got to see you guys and how you guys operate. I could tell that you guys were serious and you run a good business just from that interaction. And then you and I had got linked up through some mutual friends. And it's just really cool to see other ethical, high quality business owners in the market space that we can collaborate with, right? Because we like to collaborate. Okay, cool. So we had that interaction. You've got all this experience, but you didn't start there, right? So what were you doing before real estate? And how did you get into real estate and then grow your business to where it is today?
So I got into real estate coming out of college, but that was not my intention. So I was getting a degree. I went to University of Florida, and I had interned for a couple of summers with a big marketing firm, and thought that was the direction that I wanted to go. Marketing is interesting, and today I still think it really is an interesting topic, and I've always enjoyed the blend between numbers and creative. Like marketing kind of walks that line of, right? And I see that in real estate still today. But anyway, so got out of school in 2011, and we were still dealing with the aftermath of the '08 financial crisis at that point. So about 2 weeks before I graduated, I got a call from the marketing company that I was hoping to be working with. And they said, hey, we're really sorry to tell you this, but that job that we were talking to you about, we no longer have the position available. And at that time, I had pretty much banked on it because I'd been working with them over breaks, right? And so I graduated from college and came home to my folks and was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I'm talking to my girlfriend's dad at the time, who's now my father-in-law, and I'm telling him what's going on. And he had been getting into private lending at that same time, which, private lending, hard money, great business, but probably not the best time to start doing it right around that time of the market. So they had taken back a few single family properties in Pinellas County, where I'm based. And he volunteered to let me go and fix them up part time. And he would compensate me for fixing them up and then renting them out. And so that was really where I started, where I got my first licks in real estate. And I pursued that. And at that time, you're 21 years old, you really don't have a very good grasp on the world and certainly specific market cycles or anything like that. So, if I could go back in time and tell myself, I probably would have been like, dude, you were being handed an opportunity on a silver platter to get into real estate when the prices are extremely soft, historically. And I didn't need to go through the beating that everybody else took at that time because I was brand new to it, so, really unique opportunity in that sense where, coming in with a clean resume, so to speak, and being able to get into that. So
were you swinging the hammer at that time? So you were like doing the construction.
I was managing guys and, obviously learned a ton of lessons about how to bring in the right kind of labor. But I was doing a little bit, but I'm not like historically or by trade a contractor. But I'll go in and do little things. And I did do that. But the goal was to try to remove myself from doing the actual labor. So it was trying to learn how to go in and manage crews and be able to grow right from the start. That was the idea. It wasn't to do one or two. It was to try to get more.
Yeah, grow that. Before we go to the rest of your story, I was at an event with my partner, Bill. We were doing this thing and Tony Robbins was there. And he was talking about seasons of the economic market and seasons of life. And one of the interesting things that he said, and this was like a couple weeks ago, one of the interesting things he said, if you got into the business today, if you're like business is newer now, right now in today's environment, you're in the winter season. If you're making money and doing well right now, you're in for a treat in the coming years, because after winter comes spring and then comes summer and then comes fall, and you're getting ready to go from, this tighter market, not just real estate, but economic market. We're in a tighter economic market with some instability. So if you're doing okay today, or you're entering the marketplace today, kind of like you had good timing when you entered, back in 2011 timeframe, like you didn't know it, but you hit it right at the bottom and on the way up. If you could go back, you'd be like, buy and hold for 10 years. And then you won't have to work again. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really true. I think that I was able to have a real life representation of the saying that when everyone else is running scared, that's the time to get into the market, right?
For sure.
And we're probably to some degree, definitely not quite as intense. We're experiencing some of that today too.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, we don't know how long it'll last. We don't know if it's still going down, if this is the bottom, or like, is there going to be a bigger? We have no idea. Nobody knows. But we do know we're in a winter season. We know that this is a constrained economic season. It just looks different than what we've seen in the last 2 decades. It's just, we just don't know what we don't know. But what we do know is after winter comes spring and then summer. Will that be a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now? We don't know.
Yep. Well, that's music to my ears. I'm looking forward to that spring.
Yeah, as am I.
But it's interesting. I know when you and I we met last in person, we were talking a little bit about that and being able to adapt to the season of the market that you're within, right? And I think that's really how you differentiate yourself from other investors and really, test yourself as a true investor. Is this for you or not? Can you make it through these times in the market? And you mentioned some really interesting stuff that you and Lindsay are doing right now with finding some buyers and pre-foreclosure. And I thought that was awesome, and I was talking to my team about this the other day, and the exact same feeling and sentiment that I hope that we carry the same momentum throughout the year. But you hear about these companies when you read certain books or editorials or whatever, that when everyone else was scaling back or having slow quarters, they were able to adapt and even grow throughout those tough years. And thankfully right now, and credit to my personal team for it, they're doing a great job. And we are in a growth phase right now, which is, really blessed to feel that way.
Yeah. Can you talk about, because I know the beginning and the end. So but you went on this journey since 2011 and you start to become an investor of your own at some point. Like, what were you doing then? What was your strategy then? And obviously you guys adapted based on the conversation we had. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So got my feet wet with those first few properties, going in and fixing them up. And then my father-in-law, who I was working for directly at that time, he and actually a couple of other private investors said, hey, we actually would like to go forward and start building up a rental portfolio. And I was volunteering gladly to go and try to work every part of that I could. So I was bird dogging deals. I was overseeing the renovations. I was doing tenant placement. I was doing property management. So I was able to learn that from the ground up. And also learn it really just like on the fly in the field, trial by fire. Right. So I was young and the resources weren't quite there the way that they are now. Facebook was around, but it wasn't being utilized for business the way that it is now. Bigger Pockets was a blog. It wasn't even like what it was today. And books that I was trying to read on like, hey, how to be a landlord, they were all from like 2006. So they're just telling you to go buy and leverage as much as you can. So they really weren't that applicable to that time. So anyway, learned through all that. And then a couple years into that, I had built up enough capital of my own for down payments and renovations to go and buy a property and use a hard money loan to acquire it, and then start building my own rental portfolio. And so just to avoid any conflict of interest with the other investors I was working with, they didn't want to invest into the rough areas of St. Pete. So certain neighborhoods and pockets in South St. Pete, they were looking for more like B-class neighborhoods on the north side. So I ventured into the C-class neighborhoods in South St. Pete and started buying away in there.
What year was this?
That would be 2014, 2015.
Great year to get in, though.
It was. I mean, you were still able to buy, a 3-bedroom house in Childs Park for 35, 40 grand.
Wow.
And at that time, the model that I would follow was basically just like that, like, buy for around 35, 40 grand, You just put like 15, 20 in and then rent it out. It was a 3-bedroom. You just kind of had a rule of thumb that Section 8 would give you $1,050 a month for a 3-bedroom. And I really it was very easy to model in a spreadsheet. Now, obviously, everything looks better on paper, right? There's so many variables throughout the rehab process and all that and dealing with tenants. But so I was able to do that and start buying properties that way. And basically, without knowing what I was doing, using the BRRRR method, went back to, at the time, it was Valley National Bank, was previously US AmeriBank, and went to them, refied out, did a portfolio loan and pulled some capital out and kept it growing. So I really focused on building a rental portfolio for probably the first 5-7 years of my career. That was my main focus. I did start doing some flips at that time. Luckily, I had some pretty good advice coming from both my own father and my father-in-law, who encouraged me to stay with the rentals. They were like, dude, just trust me. In 10 years, this is going to pay off. But flips are so sexy, right? Because especially when you're in your, right. Fast cash, you're in your early 20s and like, that's what you want, right? Because it seems very cool. So we did
like these rentals give me like a couple $100 a month. It's like, I don't get it. You don't realize it's hard to envision that equity after 10 years.
Yes. And you would never, I would have never seen that coming. If someone had told me, hey, dude, just hold on and you're going to go through 2 big upswings after this, but yeah, so we were going after 20 cap rentals, when I was doing that. It's hilarious looking back now because, the market, the prices started going up, rents lagged a little bit behind that. They didn't quite increase at the same pace. And so cap rates started dipping down into the 10 to 15% range for a typical residential property, which hilariously we put our nose up to. We're like, a 15 cap, that's not going to be good enough.
Can you talk about a cap rate real quick? Like, what is that particular metric and how do you use that as a valuation metric? Particularly very popular in commercial, but obviously there's some utility in residential as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, we evaluated anything that we were going after, I guess, in the similar underwriting methods that you would use for commercial. And so this might not be following the textbook, but basically looking at what your net profit is on an annualized basis for that property divided by your cost basis. And that would give you your cap rate.
Yep.
So
and you say net, basically gross revenue less debt.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. Yeah. And expenses within that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction, particularly on this podcast with you, because I know later on in your story, you start working with some funds and some money guys, and that's how they're looking and evaluating properties. And if you didn't understand that at that time and you were wholesaling and this whole like hedge fund craze is going on, like you were being left on the sideline because you didn't speak their lingo.
Yes, that's very true. And one of the things that I was lucky about at that time was I got really good at underwriting properties based on a rental pro forma like that. And it just goes back to putting in the work. Like if you want to be really good at a sport, you go and you put in the reps, right? It's the same thing with this. I was putting in 20 reps a day of underwriting properties. So it got to the point where I would be, brushing my teeth and doing cap rate calculations in my head on a property I saw. It becomes second nature. But yeah, it was something that was ingrained in the foundation for my knowledge in the business, and it became very applicable later on when we were getting involved with institutional buyers. So fast forward from that rental stage, started doing flips because the rental market wasn't quite as soft, and then started getting curious. But I was buying properties at the time from wholesalers off the MLS, but not doing a lot of direct to seller marketing myself. Naturally, you get curious. You're like, because when at that time before in 2014, you could close your eyes and run your finger down a list in the MLS and be like, all right, I'll put an offer in on that one and see what they do. So it was a little, and buying at foreclosure auction and that kind of thing. But as the market changed, so did the sources for the deals. So wholesalers are bringing deals, and I'm realizing that some of them are doing direct to seller marketing campaigns. So we got into doing that.
So I'm curious because like now you're starting to see the info space come alive where you've got YouTube, you've got masterminds, everybody's starting to talk about it. 2016, 17, 18, it just explodes, and you can basically learn how to do any of this stuff on the internet. So you like juxtapose that with, like you're seeing what you can basically get on the internet and see how people are marketing and what they're like, all those tools. So did that influence you at all aside from just seeing the wholesalers?
Yeah, it did. So, obviously you look at the wholesalers and see what they're doing, but going back to what you're saying, having those resources at your fingertips is such a game changer because all of a sudden you can see what a guy that's successfully wholesaling in Denver is doing, and you can mimic that in your own market where maybe it wasn't being leveraged by the other investors in the area quite as much yet, and that was the direction that I went personally, was doing a lot of SMS marketing. So which is funny because we crushed SMS for a number of years there. It worked out really well for us.
At that time, we were killing it with direct mail, like 16, 17, 18, 19. Like for every dollar we'd spent, we'd make 7 back. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's a nice return.
And I feel like this is like a progression that happens and it's cyclic, right?
It is.
So you're doing flipping, you go to marketing, you start to source your own deals. And then maybe you're making 40K a flip or something. And then you look at the guy next to you and he's selling the piece of paper and he's making 40K on the paper. You're like, wait a minute, he's not doing any of this other garbage.
Yes, that's it. And yeah, so I would be, you can only manage so many flips at once. And at that time, I was still really a one-man show. So I'm trying to source deals. I'm trying to manage our rental properties that we've been building up. And I'm also
now you're a marketer and a sales guy.
Right. And running crews on the flips. And it's just like, man, this is a lot. And then you see the assignment fee some guy made on it coming to you, and you're like, I want to do that. And so we started, when I say we, I guess at that time it was my wife and I, but started doing some wholesaling kind of on the side because we'd see a deal that was good and get it and basically just go put it in the MLS. We're like, this is a lot easier than putting the work in. And then so right before like pre-COVID, I decided, I was like, I think I want to try to turn this into actually a business model and something that has some actual legs to it. It's scalable, hopefully, and brings people in to work with me. And right around that time, I met my now business partner, John Garvey, and he came in and really helped explore different marketing channels that we were using and also explode our SMS. So we went from going after just neighborhoods in St. Pete and doing what I call static data. So you basically go in, you're like, okay, we're just going to go after this block in a neighborhood. And then you realize, like, if you're just doing a certain number of SMS messages, you're going to exhaust that list very quickly. And it doesn't change, right? Like, people don't move as quickly as you want to send new text blasts. And so we got into, going after public records and scraping and looking for different data that was coming out on a daily or weekly basis and doing it that way and building up lists more and more. And we got really lucky that at that exact same time, that was when the institutional buyers were coming into single family residential for the first time. And they had never played in, SFR, right? That was
golden
not
age,
game.
man. It was the golden age.
Yeah. I mean, so institutional guys historically have always been big multifamily, hotels, that kind of stuff. So having them come into our space was a whole influx of money all of a sudden.
Yeah. And this was crazy. So this is like basically institutional buyers were primarily like fund managers that were going after. So like, as an example, they might be managing a city's pension fund and they've got all this capital. They have to employ it. They cannot have it on the sideline. So as those economics, 2019 to really mid 2022, made single family rentals really attractive based on the cap rates and all the stuff that Bennett was talking about. So they would come in and Invitation Homes, Trigen, like there's like all these different funds, SF3 and or whatever. There was like so many of these guys. There were like,
you ever seen the deeds? All the names look like the same except for one number different.
Yeah, exactly. There's like 20 of them, and if you like knew a guy in each one, it was like a whole thing. But here's what was crazy: if you could find deals, whether you were wholesaling or flipping, the way that they were underwriting was completely different. They didn't need to make money on the buy. Now, I don't know if in hindsight that was a good idea for them, but you would have a property that was like worth 200K fixed up or 300K fixed up, and you could get it for 100, but or you could get it for a couple hundred, and they're paying like basically the fixed up value for it. It was it was hard to even wrap your head around.
It was. They were 100% betting on an appreciating market. And at one point, I think they were probably even paying slightly above market value for
103% of the ARV.
Right. So it was a free for all for us, right? And it was a lot of fun while it lasted. And during that time, we had a major expansion. We went from basically focusing in St. Pete, where we were running our We Buy St. Pete Houses campaign, and suddenly we're blasting out 40,000 text messages a month statewide to anyone who fit the buy box criteria for these guys. And and that was a main focus of ours.
1,100 square feet, like 1973 or newer, no yellow lines.
Yeah, exactly. No double yellows. And we still use that on our buy box today too. It's a good one.
Yeah. So if you could find them a house that met that minimum criteria, and then they all had like, maybe some of them were different on age they'd buy, but they all had basically similar underwriting standards, and they're all buying 90 to 100% of the after repair values.
Yeah.
Gosh, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But we've needed to adapt and pivot since too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you guys go into that, and at that time you obviously start to basically wholesale a lot, because these people are just buying up everything. You get under contract. That's like 20. Then COVID hits, but the market actually starts to get better. We all freak out, but the market actually improves.
Yeah. This is actually even post COVID too, when we really jumped into it with them.
2020, 2021, it exploded, and it was going even stronger up until about July of 2022.
Yes.
So what was that like? So you're doing that with them, and then obviously that music stops, and what pivot do you guys make?
So we continued on, still doing quite a bit of wholesaling, but just recognizing that our audience was now shifting from institutional to private investors, who still had, obviously confidence had shifted a little bit, but they were still very much within the market. But we did need to adapt during that time. And you felt it too. You know, we had a year or two where you're seeing the numbers slow down and come down a little bit. And so since then we said, hey, you know, we used to be able to make money just by being at the very top of the supply chain. So effectively sourcing the deal, selling it to the next guy, they go and do what they're going to do, and they make money, and then either it goes in the rental portfolio or it goes to an end buyer if it's a private flipper. Now, one of those exit strategies has left the market because interest rates have gone up. So the institutional buyer is gone because they don't have free money anymore, basically. But for us, we're not making the same margins that we are on the wholesale. So therefore, we need to take up a larger portion of that supply chain. So we can't just be the original sourcer in the supply. We need to also be the one who's adding value through improvement. So we got back into flipping, and we came in equipped with a lot more manpower in our own office and resources to find deals than I had ever had previously 5-6 years prior to that. And so we've been jumping in and doing quite a bit more of that in a heavier volume. And then of course, you know, still continuing with our other business activities. So, we will sell the contracts. We still occasionally move things in and out of our rental portfolio. We do some private lending as well. Sometimes we kind of juice things up, and we'll put together our private lending with the stuff that we're wholesaling. And we started our brokerage during that time when we were working with the institutional buyers And we grew that, contracted it, and now we're on path to grow that again. We're actually looking to hire a managing broker to help lead that growth as we work with our existing agents and also try to bring on new ones and create a powerhouse here in Pinellas County.
Yeah, Banyan, you guys are crushing. I think that's really cool. So like this is, the risk is somebody hears this podcast or knows you or sees you and they're like 2 years in the game. Like you're on year 15, really, So it's like, yeah, you can have what Bennett has, but you got to put in the work that Bennett put in. It doesn't happen in a year or half a year. It's you have the, like you said earlier, you have the repetitions. I think a couple things stood out to me that are really interesting. Even when you started before this like craze of masterminds and all this other stuff, like you still had a mentor. Your father-in-law knew some parts of the game and like got you into the game. And of course you're figuring a bunch of stuff out, but even when you get a mentor, you still have to figure a bunch of stuff out. Like it doesn't matter what mastermind you're in, there's a level of experience required, and through experience you gain skill. And once you get that skill up to a point, like you're super skilled, I could take everything from you, put you in the street in a different city, and you would build $1 million business. I guarantee it, right? Like it wouldn't even be a question. But you couldn't that wouldn't happen in 2011. You had to first get somebody to give you like a guide, like, hey, go this way. Okay, I go this way. And then you're gaining all those skills over time. So I think that's really powerful because like even now, like I'm in a couple of different groups and I constantly am trying to be around guys like you and others who are innovative, who are pivoting, who are growing, who are optimizing their businesses, because that's what I want to do too. And I like to be around people who think like that. And it's all worth it if I hang out one time and you just give me one little thing that changes something in my business for the good. To me, that's why I try to stay in those types of communities and, like with James and you guys, and like, it's just real, it can be really powerful, but it doesn't always look the same. So I'm thinking about you coming in 2011, you don't even know it. You think you're getting employment, but really you're getting mentorship. That's
the truth, man. And amen to what you're saying. Surrounding yourself with others that share that same mindset will absolutely propel your growth. There's no doubt about it. It can be someone that has more experience with you than you rather, or it can even be someone that maybe doesn't have as much experience, but they bring a different perspective to the table.
For sure. I can remember times. I remember I was, this is like during the hedge fund craze, and I'm in a mastermind event. We're in like Park City, Utah. And, we were doing a lot of cold calling actually at this time, and I'm getting hundreds of thousands of records. Like you, I'm like crushing the state of Florida as well. And I'm skip tracing it and getting phone numbers. And I'm paying like 8 cents a record. And I think I'm killing it. Right. And I sit next to this guy in Denver who's doing a totally similar model. He goes, why are you paying so much for your skip tracing? I'm like, what? I'm getting like the best deal. He's like, dude, I'm paying 2 cents. And he put me onto that, literally saved me tens of thousands of dollars. And just like one little thing, made that whole trip worth it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to talk to more people. I'm over here thinking I got stuff figured out, and you just never really know. So.
Well, you never know who's going to be the guy to deliver that. Could be just like that. The guy sitting next to you in a seat in a mastermind, right?
Totally.
Not the guy you came to see speak, just the guy that's sitting there next to you.
It's almost never, when I go to these events, I find that like you go there, you kind of have an idea what you're looking for, but you always end up getting what you need. And it's never what you thought you needed. You're like, oh my gosh, that's like, I needed that. Even our last pivot where we went a lot heavier creative financing stuff that's been really, really profitable for our business. And it came from an event I went to in August. I went to an event. I'm sitting next to a guy. I'm looking over at his literal marketing KPI sheet. And I go, what is that? How is that making so much money? And the next week he gets on a call, walks me through the whole thing. And within like 2 weeks, Lindsay and I had implemented and we're full on running. It was like insane.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
So yeah, that's cool. So the two things that stand out is one, you've constantly like upped your game and who you're around. you get the first guide or mentor, and he kind of gets you into the game and gives you some rudder steers along the way. But the real most powerful thing is you did, since 2011 to now, the amount of repetitions and learning and work that you put in is like, it all made it so that your skill set today is so high. Like you can dominate the residential market. You would, you just have these skills that nobody can take from you. The money is great. But now the point of you could drop into another city with nothing and build a whole business and get it to seven figures probably very quickly. It's the real beauty of that whole journey to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. One of the parts now that I'm really enjoying in this chapter of my career is being able to share some of that now with the guys that are getting into it. And it's so rewarding. We have a couple of agents in here, and I love talking shop.
Yeah, me too, man.
So it's so much fun to be able to share that and see them going through it and give them a little bit more guidance than what I had at some points in that journey,
Right. Yeah. Some lessons learned, and some of it they'll have to learn on their own, but that's good too. So for you guys with your brokerage, and you guys are obviously doing a lot of direct to seller marketing and you're flipping houses, and what are you guys doing right now that is working really well? And where's the vision for that whole ecosystem of company and team you have over there over the next maybe 3 years?
Yeah. Next 3 years, I got a whole 3-year vision. We're going to continue doing our flips. They're working out really well for us, even in this market. We stay in our lane. We stay in mid-market flips, so we don't go crazy. We don't try to push to the $1 million mark just because it's sexy and looks really good on Instagram. We go for where the buyer audience is, and we do them up right. We do them up. We have a really great team that works on our renovations. And we know them from EIMG, Bell Style Designs. They worked with us on a bunch, and we have a couple other project managers that we work with as well. So this year, our goal is to do 60 sales transactions. We're on pace for it right now. I think we had 2 closings today that put us at 11 or 12 for the year. So hopefully by the end of the month, we'll be where we need to be for the end of March. And then in terms of the brokerage, our goal is to grow that side of the business. We'd like to bring in the managing broker role. I'm currently the managing broker, but I'd like to step away from that position and bring someone else in who's passionate and has the ability to lead growth for a team. Because when you're bringing in agents, it requires a lot of attention dedicated to those individuals.
Tons of mentorship, tons of guidance.
Right.
That's work. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, it's not my specific background. I'm very well versed in the investment space, but in terms of traditional representation, I've done it, but I have not done it in the same capacity that I have for the past 15 years. Right. So we'll continue doing that. And we're getting into new development right now as well. Just dipping our toe in. We've done some ground up for accessory dwelling units behind rental properties that we own. But we just submitted our first permit set for ground up on some lots in South St. Pete that we've been land banking for a number of years. So we have one permit set submitted. We're waiting for comments to come back. And then we have 2 more in design right now. So.
Yeah, I'm curious why you obviously you guys are doing great in flipping. I know because I know you guys do a really good quality product. You know how to buy, where to buy, all that stuff is pretty dialed in. What attracts you to new development? What are you seeing from an economic perspective, particularly in this Tampa Bay area? I mean, we've had a lot of builds going on. Do you still see room for growth there in the new development space?
Yeah, we do. So it's interesting because of the my first involvement in the market here and going into those C-class neighborhoods at the time in St. Pete, I got very comfortable in them and investing into them. And I still see a lot of opportunity there. So, for example, in the 10 years since 2013, that Childs Park neighborhood that I invested into, the rate of appreciation there was 8 times faster than the rest of the city of St. Pete. Now obviously you have a little bit of an advantage for that metric when your median sales price starts at $30,000, right? Eventually it's going to catch up. But what
Are those houses selling what, like 250 to 400 now?
Yeah, exactly. But new construction in there has actually exceeded that. So a typical house in there for new construction will sell between 400 and 500. And there was actually kind of a benchmark sale recently where one sold in the 800s, which that'll make your head explode if you've been working in Childs Park for years like I have. It's crazy to imagine, but we're seeing it. And what I think is happening is one, and this is specific to St. Pete, but St. Pete is the most densely populated city in Pinellas County, which is the most densely populated county in the state of Florida. And inherently there is value in the land because there's nowhere else for land to go, right? St. Pete's a peninsula in the Pinellas County Peninsula. So there's really no room for further expansion north or south or anything like that. You need to do infill lot development. The city has done a good job in trying to increase density with some of their zoning changes in the past year or two, but it's not enough to move the needle to actually detract from the value of a vacant lot. So we've witnessed a lot of value in those lots, in those neighborhoods, as people are starting to move towards them, looking for affordability, which is crazy to say that a $500,000 house is affordable, but it is.
Around these parts.
Yeah. If you want to be within driving distance, 10-minute driving distance, I should say, to both downtown St. Pete and the beach, equidistant, that's the neighborhood you need to be in. And what we've always looked at, whether it was for flips or for adding to our rental portfolio, is seeking the imbalances between neighborhoods that are divided just by one common corridor. So using that double yellow, not a highway, but just a major road, basically. So you can still be 3 blocks apart, but we look for what I call the 30% rule. If you see more than a 30% difference in the median values just by crossing that street, eventually it's going to spill over. And that's what we see in Childs Park happening there, that it has proximity to the south to Gulfport and to the west. And then to the north is a neighborhood, Central Oak Park. And it's starting to engulf it. And the values are starting to shift in there as a result.
Yeah, that's fascinating. What's beautiful about that is you've got a more long-term view on the marketplace. Just the way you were brought up is different in the investing game than I see most even today, because we're like very impatient. We have like a delayed gratification we're not great at. We as 40 and below. So, but you've been in that market for so long that you saw the benefit of like a decade's worth of data. And now you can see the values and how they shift and how the geography ties to it. It's really powerful. Like you said, a lot of people just want to chase the fast checks, which are great, but you can see you're watching on a macro view going, oh, I can see what's happening here. Like the geography doesn't change. It's still a peninsula. So where's the growth going? Even when I bought my house, and I'm north of you, I'm up in Land O'Lakes, but you just look at the explosion in Tampa, and I go up to just the 54, the 52, like those east-west corridors, massive development. So I buy a house in a I'm in the burbs, man. I got little kids. So I'm in the burbs up here, but my wife's like, cool, it's our forever home. I'm like, it's our till it 2X's home.
There you go.
Because I'm just watching the development happen here. I go, dude, in 10 years, this thing will be worth double the money.
Yep.
Like I'll buy that all day long. Don't even care. I'll just sit on it until it doubles.
It's cool being part of a macroeconomics lesson,
Yeah. And you're like living it. So it's real and it's tangible. Yeah. That's really powerful, man. So if we could just people listening to this, how can people work with you? I know you're looking for a broker. So if you're a broker, if you're a real estate broker and you're looking to be a part of growth and something that's super diverse and really talented people, like you got to reach out to Bennett, man. These guys have been around for a long time and their growth pattern is just proven. So that's a great opportunity if you're a broker looking to get into something a little more in the market, great knowledge of the market, a really strong team. Reach out to Bennett. And how else can people work with you? Like private lenders? What are you guys looking for aside from a broker?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I appreciate that, those kind words there. one of the main things that we do, we love working with agents. So one of the things that we witnessed throughout the market is that a lot of investors, probably wholesalers, gave a bad name to working with agents, and we're the opposite with that because we flip. So our value proposition to agents are, if you bring us a property that's distressed and you're direct to seller with the listing, before you go live in the MLS, you let us take a look. We'll defer any commission up front. And then after the renovation, we guarantee you the listing. So you get the opportunity to double dip on the commissions, and you get to work with a buyer who's a repeat client, because we're going to work with you a lot more often than your typical Susie home buyer who's going to buy and sell every 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going to do 60 a year. So that's cool. Okay, cool. So it's like all agents right now. Like if you're a real estate agent listening to this, like reach out to Bennett. How can they get a hold of you?
Yep. Instagram, please follow me. This is one of my big goals for 2025 is to be more present in social media. Bennett Andrews Real Estate, and my cell phone number as well. Feel free to reach out to me, 727-385-5586. Can we leave some of my contact info in the comments or something like that somewhere?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They'll put it all in the comments. They'll put your Instagram handle, your cell phone number, email if you want.
Cool. Let's do it. I'll put it all on there.
All right. Awesome, man. Well, dude, I'm super grateful that you and I got connected. I'm glad to have this relationship. I love what you guys are doing. I love the quality of what you guys do. I love your guys' values. You guys are good, ethical operators, which we can't say the same all the time. But when you do get around other people in the industry who are doing things the right way, it's always value add, man.
Yeah, so likewise. It's great to collab with someone who aligns on core values. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir, man. All right. Till the next one.